You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you a little bit about our current sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. As you well know, if you've been following This is Oklahoma, they've been a huge part of this podcast. So this podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling an Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Also, for the podcast, a new sponsor, RCB Bank. Since 1936, RCB Bank has offered progressive products and a friendly service. Come in today to find out more about their loan promotion on new, used, refinanced cars, boats, campers, and ATVs. Visit RCB Bank to learn more. RCB Bank, that's my bank. With approved credit, restrictions apply. Now, let's get into today's episode.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, host, back with another episode up in Blackwell, Oklahoma today to talk to Mike Shepard about his family business, Shepard Oil. I popped into the gas station just down the street, and the lovely women behind the counter said that you were a very nice boss and a real nice man. And they had no idea that I was here to interview you. So, but thanks for coming on the podcast today. Excited to share the family story and to learn more about you and this part of the world and this part of Oklahoma. But I guess, take us the origin story. Where does Shepard Oil begin?
Yes, my father bought his father-in-law out of a service station business here in Blackwell, small service station on the north side of town, and he started Shepard Oil Company in 1949 out of that service station.
Yeah.
And I grew up at about 9 years old, going to the service station and working around the service station. My first job was to fill the pop machines, so to speak, and empty the money out of the pop machines and put it in a bank bag ready to go to the bank. So I just grew up in the service station business. Hence, we were taught how to serve people, because back then you pumped the gas, checked the oil, washed the windshields and all that, which we don't do anymore.
Yeah.
But that's how we got started, and he ran a service station, built one of the first Champlin service stations new in the state of Oklahoma in 1961. And so I worked with him throughout, my teens, and learned to drive a truck at 16 years old. And back then you didn't have to have a CDL license or anything, so I could go make farm deliveries at 16 years old on a 2-ton gasoline truck. But that's where we got started at, and just kind of evolved from there.
Life's a lot different now, isn't it, compared to what it was back then?
Very different.
I do wonder if there is room in the world for a gas station to come out and go back to the old services.
We would like to try that.
That would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, we would like to try that.
It'd be kind of special.
I know of one in the state of Oklahoma right now.
Really?
Yes.
Where's that?
Stillwater, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Not too far away then.
Right.
Yeah. That's it's. I think it would be really cool, wouldn't it, to have that full service, and it would stand out in a day, nowadays.
It would certainly be different.
Yeah. What was Blackwell like back then?
Oh gosh, Blackwell was probably had about 1,000 more people in it than it does now. It was, I think, the top population was around 8,500, something like that. All the businesses up and down Main Street were full and thriving, and there was a lot more commerce in Blackwell back then. Yeah. I remember Main Street was full of cars, both directions, and that doesn't exist anymore.
Sadly not. I know. I took a little drive around town, and it is sad to see, isn't it? That kind of like the American small town is, it's struggling big time, with big box and all the rest of it, and people getting stuff online. But and I've never seen it like it was when you grew up, so I'm sure it's sad for you to see as well. But hopefully it'll return to former glory sometime.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah. So growing up, then you're in the service industry, you're helping out family. Well, you learned to drive a truck at 16. You're in high school. Do you go to university, or do you stay in the family business?
No, I went to Oklahoma State University and graduated from there. Worked. I was actually coming home on the weekends and working with my dad.
Yeah.
And
so when you go to, what did you study at OSU?
Business administration.
With the plan to come back into the business?
Yeah, I really
Yeah.
had planned to come back in the business. I enjoyed working with my father and enjoyed the customer base that we had and the business that we had built. And so,
Yeah. And through this time that you're growing up, the business is growing as well.
It was.
Which is really nice to see because you probably remember all of that. And
It
you remember how it
was,
was when you
yeah.
started with the Champlin, when you built in that Champlin service station, and then now it's growing and growing and growing.
1974, I went to my dad and said, we need to build a convenience store. And that didn't set too well with him at the time, being in the service industry. But that's what we did, and that's how we got started in the convenience store business.
So when you graduated, did you head up all that kind of side of things rather than the distribution side of things?
Oh, did a little bit of everything. Yeah.
What was
Back then, we only had about 3 or 4 employees. Me being one of them.
Yeah. So where does it then take off to where we're at now then? From like having 3 or 4 employees to
just a long-term, slow growth. Look at some opportunities and add another convenience store and add some more wholesale customers, which would in turn make us add more trucks to our fleet, transportation fleet. So it's just been a slow evolution of growth.
What was that first convenience store like when you opened that up and convincing Dad to do it originally and kind of going through that?
We had no idea what we were doing.
Milk, bread, and eggs, and that's it.
That's right. I found myself frying roasted chicken in the back of the store several times, but it was fun. It was hard work, but it was fun growing up in the business and trying new things, from hauling gas to frying chicken. And it was all basically serving customers just in different roles.
Yeah. And around that time, kind of convenience stores were coming in, right? It wasn't just gas stations. They were starting to have convenience stores attached to it, and then you start making more money from the convenience side of things than you do from the gas side of things.
Correct.
So you saw the value.
Well, the service station evolved into a self-service station, which my dad said would never work. But it did, and we went in from the self-service business into the convenience store business.
Yeah. And looking at some research, you had some stuff with Phillips too, right? Didn't you buy some of the... Was it a store that you bought from them?
We're a Phillips distributor.
Gotcha.
We're a Phillips distributor. So we purchase gasoline from the refinery from Phillips and deliver it to convenience store operators.
Yeah. So tell me about, obviously we did the convenience side of things. What about the other side of the business? Was that the other side of the business, was that kind of like the main plan from Dad's perspective? And then you
Yes, we were, back in the day, we were called an oil jobber.
Okay.
And then now we're called a petroleum marketer. And we evolved from serving oil field and farming, mainly the agriculture industry, into delivering from refinery to convenience stores and other industries. I guess I'll say. Yeah.
Well, being in this part of the state, right? Agriculture's king out here, isn't it?
Right.
Driving out here, it's nice to see green grass.
It is.
And I'm sure some of them might be happy for rain, but some of them might not be, because I know there's harvest just now, isn't it? People are trying to get out there and harvest this stuff, and I know not much about agriculture, but I know enough that sometimes rain's not a good thing.
It's good on the corn and bad on the wheat. And they've got both out right now. So.
So you're in the business, you graduate, you open the convenience stores. I mean, what's that like? Take us back there. Like, what's kind of like typical day for you, and compared to now, obviously, like it's totally different. But what year is that? What's that like?
After I got out of college and came back, mostly dealt with farmers on the wholesale side of the business. And we would be at work at 6 or 6:30 in the morning and work until 6 in the evening. And especially during harvest time, we'd be open 7 days a week. We'd be open 12, 14 hours a day until harvest was over with. And of course, we had walk-in traffic at that time because we sold motor oil and batteries and tires and everything that goes along with the oil field and the agricultural industry. So longer hours, less employees and more hands-on type of work. And So
Yeah.
that's the way it.
Did you? Was it when you're doing all this agriculture stuff? Did anyone in the family go the agriculture route and raise cattle and do crops and stuff, or was it kind of stayed on
my
the
uncle
side?
and my cousin? Yes.
Yeah.
They went the agriculture route.
You didn't want any part of that?
No, my great-grandfather homesteaded a farm out here west of Blackwell, 5 miles west of Blackwell, which is still in the family. So they ended up with that, and then they started buying more land and got into agriculture. But no, I was not. I couldn't grow a tomato plant.
I'm the same way. I'm terrible at it. Stick to let the professionals do what they do. And I mean, that industry now has obviously evolved with technology, and I mean, you can tractors drive in by GPS now, which is bonkers to me, but it's
changed
great
big
for them.
time.
Yeah. How about the oil industry then? How's that kind of, it goes up and down, all as we go through the decades. What's that been like for you being in the business and forecasting and just managing all that stuff that's going on as well?
Oh, we've seen more government intervention in our business over the years, which creates more bookwork, more headaches like that. But I told the guy one day, he asked how business was, and I told him it wasn't any better than the price of a barrel of oil or the price of a bushel of wheat. And then after I made the comment, I thought, gosh, that's right. I really kind of just rolled it off of my head, and I thought, yeah, that's right, because that's what the industry was back at that time. It was oil field and farmers. But we've changed over the years to keep up with the times as far as what we do in a day's time.
Yeah. Is there any ideas or anything that you guys, looking back, were close to going into, or a part of the business that you decided not to go into, but you were really thinking about it?
Not really. We ran a bobtail truck for several years, and gosh, I think it must have been back in the mid-'80s, which we had done since the inception of the business, and we decided that wasn't profitable anymore. So we actually called up our farm customers and our industrial customers and said, on such and such a date, we're not going to be delivering anymore.
Right.
Which was quite a shock to them, and it was really quite a shock to us because we'd done it for so long and decided that we needed to take a new direction with our business. So
was it just not making the right sense financially to do it, or the time
correct.
as well?
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
And for people listening that don't know what a bobtail is, can you explain that? I know what it is, but some
you
people
go.
listening might not.
Well, it's a 2 to 4 ton truck that's got a tank on the back of it that is attached to the truck, and usually the first one I drove, I think it held 1,000 gallons, and the last one I drove held about 5,000 gallons. So they got larger over the years, but that's what we use to deliver to the oil field and to the agriculture industry.
Do you miss driving the trucks?
Not at all.
I always see when driving down the road, and I'm like, you change so many gears, but it's like the kid in me is like, that looks so cool.
Yeah.
And then the adult in me is like, that, you need a strong left leg and a lot of patience, and a lot of awareness too.
I'll still move one around the truck yard or something, but that's the extent of my driving.
Well, and they've evolved so much too, right? The trucks from back in the day when you learned at 16, you were probably double declutching and all the rest of it to get it moving, and now it's power steering and and computers,
air conditioning. I'm aging myself now.
I can't imagine what it's like driving a truck around in the heat of the summer to out to farms and with no air conditioning, windows down.
We didn't know any better,
right? Yeah. Well, and looking back, sometimes you think I'd love to have a bit of that life back, because it was probably peaceful and no social media, no internet, no worries about that. It was
great.
Yeah. Do you have any family else, like brothers and sisters that are in the business as well?
I've got a son and a son-in-law that are in the business with me. Yes.
Okay. And did they go the same route as you, go to Oklahoma State and then come back?
They did. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
That's really cool to have that, to have kind of family business and have sons and generations that want to be a part of it.
It is.
Because some families, they grow up and they have kids, and even though there's no pressure for the kids to get involved, the kids don't want any part of it.
Right.
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 But that must be special to, like you went to work with your dad and now your sons are coming to work with you.
Right. It's been a real blessing to have the son and son-in-law come in, because they have visions for greater and grander. And at my age, I'm wanting to slow down, and so it's kind of been fun to watch them take hold of the reins and continue to grow.
What direction are they taking it? Well, what's kind of the new direction for the business?
I'm not sure there is any new direction. We're continuing to want to add additional convenience stores, and we continue to grow our transportation and wholesale business.
Yeah.
The transportation business naturally grows from the wholesale business, because the more gallons you sell, the more transportation you need. So they're looking outside a little bit at some different things, thinking we need to diversify. But nothing real solid right now.
Yeah, updating systems and making things more streamlined, I guess, to use a business term. Which I always hated hearing that when I was in business class. I don't know why. That must be cool though, and now I guess you see yourself in your dad's shoes, right? And they bring in ideas, and you're like, I don't know about that.
Exactly. Yes, what my dad was experiencing with me, I'm getting it right back. And some of it's good, and some of it's trying, but it's we haven't lost the fun out of doing business. We enjoy our customer base for the most part, and we enjoy the vendors that we deal with, which is quite a few at this stage in the business. So.
How many convenience stores do you guys have?
We've got 6.
Okay. In the local to Blackwell?
Yes.
Yeah. And the plan is to just slowly grow and push them out
Well,
there?
I say local to Blackwell. Our farthest one away is about 90 miles. So it's in the region, I'll say it that way.
Yeah. Plan to stay in Oklahoma, or eventually would you like to kind of push out of the state?
We've got one in Kansas right now.
Okay.
So no, we don't necessarily have to stay in Oklahoma.
And the distribution side goes a lot further, I assume.
Yeah, it's in 5 states.
Well, that's nice. Yeah.
It continues to grow. So.
Yeah. Is it easier to compete in the distribution side of things compared to the convenience store side of things?
No, it's probably more difficult. Most of the deals that we have with in the distribution side have like a 10-year contract to them. And so it's a slower process naturally than the convenience store industry.
But you have the know-how and the right word for it, but the fallback. I'm trying to think, my vocab's terrible, but the reliability of knowing that it's going to be there for 10 years, right? Thankfully, that you can have that, so you can project and forecast and push in other areas. For people listening, might not be watching, behind you is a gas pump, and looking at the cost of it, was it 38 cents I think is what it was on
I believe so.
How long ago was that?
That would have been in the mid 60s probably.
And we're at what, 285 something now?
About 280.
Yeah. That's painful to look at that. Since I drive the highway, I'm like, gas is not cheap. But
I'll tell you a little bit of difference, the evolution of our business. The gasoline pump behind me's got a little motor in the bottom of it and a pump in the bottom of it. I took some school kids down to one of our stores. It's been a couple of years ago. They want to know about our industry. And I started telling them about how a satellite in space was picked up from our POS system in our store that ran our credit card system through that gasoline pump. And as I was telling them about it, I had an epiphany about what technology's done in our industry over the last 50 years. So, you're
not out there hand pumping anymore, are you?
No.
But it's cool to see, and it's great to have memorabilia, especially I love watching, American Pickers, the TV show, and they travel around and they're always buying old oil, gas station stuff, and there's a station down the street, right, that's got signs outside it. Is that in the family? Is that one of yours?
No.
Okay.
It's
I stopped by and took some pictures, so that was really cool.
I just bought a pop machine that was built in 1958. It's sitting out here in the shop that I'm getting ready to restore, so I'm going backwards now.
That's good. I mean, it's cool to have. I mean, and those things, they when you restore them, they can be, pretty profitable. There's plenty of people who my brother-in-law's dad, he collects signs too, and you open up his garage and it's just lit up and it looks neon lights and all back in the day. But so is that kind of like your kind of hobby, side passion to get you away from working?
A little bit, yes. I enjoy. I'll go to an antique store and find something that I had dealt with in the service station business, back in the late '60s or early '70s, and pick up a piece here or a piece there. So I'm not a great collector, but I am collecting some things that I had back in.
Are you into cars and trucks? Old cars and trucks?
No, I'm not.
No, that gets expensive.
I'd like to be, but I'm not.
As I was driving past that station back there with the signs, there's a couple of old cars inside there, and for me, I didn't grow up seeing muscle cars, right, or anything of the old cars either. But the stuff that classic cars back home are like Rolls Royces and all that wedding kind of car stuff. But out here, it's cool to see people doing the old, 50s, 60s trucks and cars and stuff. Yeah. I'm sure that you've seen plenty in your day coming to the stations.
Yes, for sure.
It's the whole culture about it. It's great out here. I mean, the some might not like it, but the whole kind of street culture, drag culture, and the racing culture. Did Blackwell ever have any of that?
Oh, yes, for sure.
You share some stories. Are you getting into too much trouble?
For sure. Well, the old muscle cars, when I was growing up, in the service station business, the guys that worked there were probably 5 or 6 years older than me. They were the ones building all the hot rods then. They would work at the service station, and then in their time off, they'd have their car in the bay, adding some mufflers to it or something. So I kind of grew up around that area.
But never went into it yourself and never got involved.
No.
I'm sure Mum and Dad are probably happy you didn't get involved. Happy to sell the stuff but not get involved.
Right.
Do you guys sponsor any stuff like that? Any kind of race teams or anything?
No, we don't sponsor any race teams. We try to we have a lot of people come to us in the community, wanting us to sponsor this and that, from cheerleading to agriculture, whatever, the ag kids and things. And we try to sponsor or help out with all of those.
Yeah. And, obviously being still in Blackwell is important to you, with, like you said, it's not what it was back in the day, but, if you guys weren't here, it could be a lot worse, right? So it must be important for you guys to stay around, where your family grew up, where your roots are, and to give back to the community, because, without companies like yourself, people might not have the facilities they have, right? The baseball stadium or the field or whatever it is, the school stuff. Yeah, so that must be cool to have that impact and know that your history has been here for, a long time.
Yeah, it is. We're very blessed. We feel blessed to be able to do that, to, put back into the community and help the kids that are growing up today.
Yeah.
Whether they're on a baseball field or we're in a stock show,
Yeah. What about a current time then? Obviously son-in-law and son's in the business. You're, working towards retiring. Like most business owners, I'm sure you never will retire because, we can never do that, right? We can, if you own your own business, it's tough to just step back and do nothing. But, what's kind of like your plans for the next few years and future and what do you want to do?
Well, you're right. I probably never will retire. But my son and my son-in-law, Brendan and Zach, are pretty well operating the business. I'm more of a consultant now, and get to choose when I come in and when I go home. And so it's been a nice transition. At first, I'll be honest with you. At first, I thought this place can't run without me. And I found out that it could.
Yeah.
Which I'm glad.
Very glad.
Yeah. So I get to, it's been a nice evolution, in the last, probably 5 or 6 years, I guess, to be able to do that.
You mentioned going to Oklahoma State and family's gone to Oklahoma State. Do you go to games very often?
Oh, I really don't.
No?
I'll take on a few, but no, I'm busy with grandkids or traveling and things like that. So no, I don't get too many.
Do you like to travel?
I do. Yes.
Around the States or more international?
Around the States, yeah.
Yeah, is that kind of like you and your wife's passion kind of thing to travel?
Well, at our age, you got to get out of Blackwell and go see some other things.
Do you hit the road in an RV and do the RV?
No, we don't do the RV thing. No, usually we're in an airplane somewhere.
Yeah. No, hopefully we get to do that. Things are opening up, right, and people are traveling more and more. But
right.
What's the bucket list then? What are the places that you haven't been that you want to go to?
Oh goodness, we'd like to go to Europe. Haven't ever been to Europe. So.
Terrible. You shouldn't go. No, it's brilliant.
We'd like to do that. I've always wanted to see Mount Rushmore right here in the States and haven't made it up that way.
Yeah.
So we go to Branson, Missouri a lot. That's kind of our hangout when we're not in Oklahoma.
Yeah.
And so
I've had a lot of friends go up there recently just to play Tiger Woods' new golf course up there and stay at the Big Cedar Lodge and see that whole. I mean, it's. I've seen pictures. It looks beautiful, but not been myself. But it's one of the things we don't really get in Oklahoma is rolling hills.
That's exactly right.
And mountains and stuff like that. Well, Mike, I really appreciate you taking time out. I know you just mentioned you get to pick and choose what days you come in, and I'm glad you came in to work today to share some stories about the family business. For people listening that have heard this and maybe you want to reach out and ask questions or go to the stores or whatever, where do they go? What's the website?
It's shepherdoil.com.
Awesome.
shepherdoil.com.
Great. And again, thanks so much. I really, really appreciate it. And thanks to RCB for putting us together. I know they're a client, you're a client of theirs, and they're a great sponsor for the podcast. And I wouldn't be able to do what I do without them. So
they've been a great vendor of ours. Hate to call them a vendor. We've got more of a relationship, but they've been a great asset to our business throughout the years, helping us to grow.
Awesome. Well, for people listening, I'll post all the links to RCB and the shepherdoil.com in the website. And can't talk, or am I thinking? I'll put the information in the description. You can check that out. And yeah, thank you, Mike, so much. I really appreciate it. For people listening, you should definitely come to Blackwell. You should go to Bob's Grill and get some breakfast, check it out, and maybe swing by the office and say hello to Mike and the girls up front, because they've been great. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Also, huge shout out to RCB Bank for jumping on board to be a sponsor. RCB Bank's loan promotion is here for a limited time. Head into any of their 40 Oklahoma locations to get as low as 1.79 APR on your next car, boat, camper, or ATV. Apply online at rcbbank.com. RCB Bank, that's my bank. Rate and finance with approved credit. Restrictions apply. A member FDIC. Huge shout out to my sponsors. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.